When I opened my eyes that afternoon, I thought I had walked into the wrong house. My late husband, Michael's armchair, was gone. The blue sofa we bought on our 25th anniversary had disappeared. Even the old oak
How long
cabinet
were
that
you
held our
planning on
family
keeping this from me?
photographs was missing.
Mom, please, I just need
I
to finish
stood
this.
in the middle of my
Don't you
empty
walk
living
away
room,
from me.
my hands shaking,
Who would be
while my
calling
daughter
this late?
Vanessa calmly
Let me
folded
check,
laundry
Mama.
in the kitchen. "Where is everything?" I asked. She never looked at me. "Relax, Mom. I sold some old furniture. You were asleep." Then her phone lit up on the counter. One message. Did she sign anything yet? And suddenly losing my furniture no longer felt like the worst thing that had happened that day. If this story touches you, I'd truly love to hear from you. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy stories about family strength and second chances. And before we continue, tell me in the comments how you would react if your own child made a decision like this without asking you. Also, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Sometimes, knowing we are not alone makes these stories a little easier to tell. My name is Destiny Howard, and until 3 years ago, I believed my life had already taught me every kind of heartbreak a woman could survive. I was 68 years old, a retired nurse, living in a quiet neighborhood outside Cleveland, Ohio. After nearly 42 years of marriage, I lost my husband Michael to pancreatic cancer. Even now, there are mornings when I still reach across the bed expecting to find his hand. The silence after Michael died was unlike anything I had experienced in my entire life. As a nurse, I had sat beside dying patients. I had comforted families. I had watched people take their final breaths. But nothing prepared me for walking into my own kitchen and realizing there was no one waiting to ask me how I slept. Michael had always been the first person I spoke to every morning. After his funeral, people visited for several weeks. Friends brought casseroles, neighbors checked on me, church members called. But eventually, everyone returned to their own lives, and I remained inside a house filled with memories. The old oak cabinet in the living room held our family photographs. The blue sofa was where Michael had read newspapers every Sunday. His brown leather armchair sat beside the window exactly where he had spent his final months watching the birds outside. I kept everything exactly the way he left it. Maybe some people would call that unhealthy. I called it surviving. My daughter Vanessa lived about 40 minutes away. She was 39 years old and had been married for nearly 15 years. Her husband, Kevin, worked in construction, and together they had built what I believed was a stable life. But life has a way of collapsing quietly before it collapses loudly. About 8 months before everything happened, Vanessa called me late one evening. She was crying. Real crying. The kind a mother recognizes immediately. "Mom," she said, "Kevin left?" I sat down at the kitchen table because my knees suddenly felt weak. "What happened?" "He said he wasn't happy anymore." I remember staring at the refrigerator while she sobbed on the phone. I wanted to drive to her apartment immediately, but she told me not to. Over the following weeks, more truths came out. The divorce became ugly. There were debts, credit cards, missed payments, arguments. Then, Vanessa lost her job at a dental office. Everything seemed to fall apart at once. One rainy afternoon, she arrived at my front door carrying 2 suitcases. She looked exhausted. Her mascara had run. She had lost weight. For a moment, she looked 12 years old again. "I don't know where else to go, Mom." No mother in the world can prepare herself for hearing those words. I hugged her. "You're home." And I meant it. The first few weeks felt almost comforting. For the first time since Michael died, there was another person in the house. I could hear footsteps upstairs. The television played in the evenings. We cooked dinner together. Sometimes Vanessa even sat beside me in Michael's old chair and asked me stories about him. She seemed softer, kinder. She cleaned the kitchen, She drove me to doctor's appointments. She insisted on helping with groceries. One evening, she wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "I should have been here sooner." I cried after she went upstairs, because for the first time in years, I felt needed again. But small things began to bother me. At first, they seemed harmless. Vanessa asked questions, lots of questions. How much is the house worth now? Did Dad leave life insurance? Do you still have retirement savings? Who's listed on the deed? I answered because she was my daughter. I didn't think anything of it. People talk about money. Families discuss these things. Still, there was something in the way she asked. Not curiosity, calculation. One afternoon, while we folded laundry together, she said casually, "This house is probably worth a fortune now." I laughed. "It's just an old house." "No, Mom. Houses around here sell for good money." I looked at her. "You planning to become a realtor?" She smiled. "I'm just saying, you shouldn't stay here alone forever." At the time, her concern sounded loving. Now I hear something completely different. Vanessa began taking phone calls outside. Sometimes she would step onto the back porch. Other times, she sat in her car. When I entered the room, conversations ended. "Who was that?" I asked once. "Nobody." Nobody seemed to call several times every day. Late one evening, I walked downstairs for a glass of water and heard her speaking softly in the kitchen. "I know." Pause. "No, not yet." Another pause. "She's still emotional about Dad." I froze halfway down the stairs. The floor creaked. Vanessa turned immediately. She smiled too quickly. "Couldn't sleep." I nodded. She ended the call. "Who was it?" "Oh, just a friend." I wanted to believe her. I truly did. Because mothers become experts at believing what hurts the least. Several weeks later, she asked to see Michael's office. My husband's small office remained untouched after his death. His desk still held old pens, papers, and framed photographs. Vanessa opened drawers. She examined folders. She looked through cabinets. "What are you looking for?" I asked. She shrugged. "I thought Dad kept important documents in here." "He did. Like the house papers." Something inside me tightened. "Why?" She smiled. "Just trying to help you organize. The truth is, grief makes people vulnerable. Loneliness makes them even more vulnerable. When you spend years by yourself, you begin welcoming any attention, any company, any affection. I ignored things that should have worried me. The strange phone calls, the financial questions, the sudden interest in paperwork. Because every evening, Vanessa sat beside me while we watched television. She made tea. She asked about my day. She hugged me goodnight. And after years of sleeping alone in a silent house, having my daughter under the same roof felt like receiving a second chance. Then one morning, my neighbor Evelyn Brooks stopped by. Evelyn was 73, widowed like me, and had lived next door for over 20 years. She handed me a pie. "I haven't seen much of you lately." I smiled. "Vanessa's staying with me." Her expression changed slightly. "How's that going?" "Wonderful." Evelyn hesitated. "Well, that's good." There was something in her voice, something unfinished. Before leaving, she looked toward Vanessa's car parked outside. Then she looked back at me. "Just make sure you're taking care of yourself too, Destiny." I laughed. "I've been taking care of people my entire life." She squeezed my hand. "Sometimes that's the problem." That night, while washing dishes, I noticed Vanessa standing in the living room. She was staring at Michael's leather chair, the one beside the window, the chair where he spent his last days. the chair I had never allowed anyone to move. "What?" I asked. She turned toward me. "Mom, don't you think it's time to let some things go?" I looked at the chair, at the worn leather, the blanket folded neatly over the arm, the reading glasses still resting beside it. "No," she sighed. "Dad's gone." The words hit me harder than they should have. "I know that." "You can't keep living in a museum." I dried my hands slowly. "And I don't need anyone telling me how long I'm allowed to miss my husband." For the first time since moving in, I saw something flash across Vanessa's face. Frustration, anger, impatience. It disappeared quickly. "I'm sorry," she said, but something had changed. Later that night, as I walked past her bedroom, I heard her voice, soft, urgent. "No, not yet." A pause. "She won't do it." Another pause. Then words I would remember much later. "We need more time." I stood in the hallway, my heart beating harder than it should. And for the first time since my daughter came home, I wondered if I truly knew why she had returned. The first thing that disappeared was Michael's watch. It had sat on his bedroom dresser for 3 years. Every morning, after making coffee, I would dust around it carefully. The leather strap had cracked with age, and the gold casing had become scratched over decades of use, but to me, it was priceless. Michael had worn that watch nearly every day of our marriage. I noticed it one Tuesday afternoon. The dresser looked strangely empty. I opened the top drawer. Nothing. I checked the bathroom, the nightstand, the closet, the kitchen counter. The watch was gone. "Vanessa!" I called. She appeared in the hallway carrying a basket of laundry. "What is it, Mom?" "Have you seen your father's watch?" She frowned. "The old one?" "Yes." She shrugged. "I haven't touched it." I searched for another 20 minutes. Finally, Vanessa walked into the bedroom and crossed her arms. "Mom, are you sure you didn't move it?" "No." "You've been forgetting things lately." The words stung. "I'm not forgetting things." She sighed. "I'm just saying that sometimes people our age—" "Our age?" She looked uncomfortable. "You know what I mean." I didn't, and honestly, I didn't like the way she had said it. That night, I sat in Michael's chair, staring at the empty dresser. I knew exactly where that watch had been. I had dusted around it every single morning. A week later, the crystal glasses disappeared. They had been our wedding gift from Michael's parents. We used them every anniversary, every Christmas, every Thanksgiving dinner. I opened the dining room cabinet. The shelf was empty. All 6 glasses were gone. This time, I asked Vanessa immediately. "Oh," she said, "I packed them away." "Why? They're fragile." "Where did you put them?" She hesitated. "I think the garage." We searched the garage. No glasses. Then the basement. Nothing. Finally, she shook her head. "Maybe I donated them." I stared at her. "You donated my wedding glasses. They were just sitting there." "They belonged to your grandparents?" She rolled her eyes. "Mom, they're glasses." "No, they're memories." Vanessa walked away. I stood alone in the dining room, suddenly feeling as though I had become a guest inside my own home. The following week, the small brass lamp from Michael's office vanished. Then a framed photograph. Then one of his old fishing rods. Each time, there was an explanation. Maybe I had moved it. Maybe I forgot. Maybe she packed it. Maybe she donated it. Maybe it had broken. The explanations changed. The missing items did not. One morning, I began writing everything down. A small notebook. Date, time, item, location. I felt foolish doing it, like an old woman trying to prove she still had her mind. But I had spent 40 years as a nurse. I knew the signs of memory loss, and I knew what was happening to me wasn't memory loss. It was something else. One afternoon, I found Vanessa sitting at the kitchen table looking at my notebook. "What is this?" I reached for it. "Nothing." She read several pages. "You're keeping a list." I nodded. Her expression changed. "Mom, this isn't healthy. Things are disappearing." "No, you're obsessing. I know what belongs in my house." She leaned back in her chair. "You forgot your cardiology appointment last month." "I was sick." "You left the stove on." "Once." "You repeated the same story twice last week." I felt my cheeks grow warm. Everybody forgets things. Everybody repeats stories. But hearing my own daughter list my mistakes felt different. It felt like evidence. Evidence I had never realized someone might be collecting. That evening, I called my friend Evelyn. She arrived 30 minutes later carrying coffee. We sat on my back porch. "I think I'm losing my mind," I whispered. Evelyn looked at me. "No, you aren't." I laughed softly. "How would you know?" "Because I've known you for 20 years. I told her about the missing watch, the glasses, the lamp, the notebook, Vanessa's comments. Evelyn listened quietly. Finally, she said, "Have you asked yourself why she's making you doubt yourself?" The question surprised me. "I don't think she is." Evelyn didn't answer immediately. She looked toward my house. "Last Thursday, I saw a truck outside." I frowned. "What truck?" "A pickup." "When?" "Middle of the afternoon." My stomach tightened. "What kind of truck?" "I don't know. White. 2 men?" I stared at her. "They were carrying something." "What?" She looked uncomfortable. "I thought maybe Vanessa hired someone." My voice became quieter. "What were they carrying?" Evelyn hesitated. "A chair." I stopped breathing for a moment. "What kind of chair?" I couldn't tell. But I could. Michael's chair. The chair beside the window. The chair no one had touched in 3 years. "No," I whispered. "I may be mistaken." But I knew she wasn't. I walked back inside after Evelyn left. The house felt different. Every room suddenly seemed larger, colder. I stood beside Michael's chair. I touched the leather arm. I imagined strangers carrying it away. Vanessa entered from upstairs. "What's wrong?" Evelyn saw a truck. Her face changed for only a second. "What truck?" "She said 2 men were carrying furniture." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Evelyn is old." "So am I." People imagine things. I looked directly at her. "Did anyone come here?" "No." The answer came too quickly, too smoothly. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I walked downstairs. The kitchen light was on. Vanessa sat alone at the table. She quickly locked her phone when she saw me. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. Neither of us mentioned the truck. I poured water into a glass. Then I noticed several papers beside her. Real estate advertisements, homes for sale, senior communities, retirement apartments. "What are those?" She covered them with her hand. "Nothing." "Vanessa," she sighed. "I'm just looking." "At what Places. For who? She looked at me carefully. You've said yourself this house is too much work. I felt cold. I've never said that. You live alone. I wasn't alone until you moved in. She looked away. You could sell this place and be comfortable. I stared at my daughter. The kitchen suddenly felt very small. This is my home. She said nothing. I went upstairs, but before entering my bedroom, I stopped outside hers. Her door wasn't completely closed. I heard her voice, soft, low. He still left everything to her. Silence. No, she doesn't know. Another silence. I'll handle it. Then she laughed. A laugh I hadn't heard before. Not the laugh of my daughter. Not the laugh of a woman rebuilding her life. It sounded nervous, secretive, almost afraid. The next morning, while dusting the living room, I noticed something strange. Michael's chair had moved, only a few inches. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but I had spent 3 years looking at that chair every day. Someone had moved it, and someone had moved it back. I walked around it slowly. Then I knelt beside the chair. Underneath one leg, I found a small white sticker. A pricing sticker. $35. I sat down on the floor. My hands began to shake. Because people don't put price tags on furniture they plan to keep. And for the first time, I realized that perhaps the missing watch, the glasses, and the lamp were not accidents. Perhaps they were practice. Perhaps someone inside my house had already started taking pieces of my life, one item at a time. And I was beginning to fear that Michael's chair would be next. The morning everything changed began like every other morning. I woke up at 6:30. The house was quiet. Rain tapped softly against the kitchen windows while the coffee maker hissed beside me. Vanessa was still asleep upstairs, and for a few precious minutes the house belonged only to me. I sat in Michael's chair with my coffee, the same chair that now carried a small white price sticker underneath one leg. I hadn't told Vanessa about the sticker. I wanted to. I wanted to hold it in front of her face and ask why anyone would place a price tag on my dead husband's chair. But something inside me had changed. For the first time, I was watching her, and I didn't want her to know. Later that morning, she came downstairs smiling. You look tired, Mom. I didn't sleep well. You worry too much. She kissed my cheek and began making breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, bacon. The kind of breakfast she used to make on Mother's Day when she was young. For a moment, I almost forgot everything. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe stress had made me suspicious. Maybe grief had made me protective. Perhaps my daughter truly wanted to help me. That afternoon, Vanessa suggested tea. I bought something new, she said. What kind? Chamomile and lavender. She smiled. You haven't been sleeping. I accepted the cup. The tea tasted slightly different. Sweeter. Stronger. But I drank it anyway. After lunch, I sat in Michael's chair to read. The rain continued outside. The house felt warm, comfortable. The last thing I remember was Vanessa standing near the hallway looking at me. You should rest for a little while, Mom. I probably should. And then darkness. Deep darkness. Not ordinary sleep. I had worked in hospitals long enough to know the difference. Ordinary sleep comes and goes. This felt heavy, like sinking underwater. When I opened my eyes, sunlight had disappeared. The room was dark. My neck hurt. My head felt cloudy. I looked toward the clock. Nearly 7 o'clock. I had slept almost 5 hours. My body immediately told me something was wrong. I stood up, and then I froze. The sofa was gone. For several seconds, my mind refused to understand what my eyes were seeing. The blue sofa Michael and I had bought for our 25th anniversary had disappeared. The coffee table was gone. The oak cabinet containing family photographs had vanished. The side lamp was missing. The small end table beside Michael's chair was gone. Large, empty spaces filled the room. Blank sections of carpet showed where furniture had once stood. I couldn't breathe. Vanessa. No answer. I walked toward the kitchen. She stood calmly washing dishes. Vanessa? She turned. What? I pointed toward the living room. Where is everything? She stared at me for a moment. Oh. Oh. That was her answer. Oh. I had some people come today. My voice shook. What people? Moving people. What are you talking about? She dried her hands. You've been saying this house is cluttered. I never said that. You did. No. She sighed heavily. Mom, relax. Where is my furniture? It's being stored. What? You need less furniture. I stared at her. My husband's cabinet is gone. It was old. My sofa is gone. It was worn out. My photographs were inside that cabinet. They're packed. Where? She looked away. In storage. What storage? Silence. Vanessa. She crossed her arms. You're overreacting. I walked into the living room. My knees suddenly felt weak. Only Michael's chair remained. The chair with the price sticker. The chair that now sat alone in the center of the room. Like someone had forgotten to take it, or planned to come back later. I opened the front door. No truck, no movers, nothing. The driveway was empty. When I returned inside, Vanessa had already turned on the television. As if nothing had happened. How could you do this while I was asleep? You needed rest. Why didn't you ask me? I knew you'd say no. The honesty of that answer stunned me. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't embarrassed. She simply believed she had the right. I walked upstairs. The dizziness returned. I sat on my bed. My heart was racing. The tea. I thought about the tea, about the strange sleep, about sleeping 5 hours in the middle of the afternoon. As a nurse, I knew medications, sedatives, sleep aids. I also knew how dangerous assumptions could be, but I couldn't ignore the thought. Had she put something in my tea? The idea seemed impossible. And yet, so did waking up in an empty house. That evening, I called Evelyn. She arrived 20 minutes later. The moment she entered the house, she stopped. Oh my God. I nodded. She sold it. Evelyn turned toward Vanessa. What happened? Vanessa smiled politely. We're redecorating. Evelyn looked at me. I said nothing, because if I spoke, I knew I would start crying. After Vanessa went upstairs, Evelyn sat beside me. Did she ask permission? No. Did you sign anything? No. Did you know people were coming? No. She looked around the room. Destiny, this isn't right. I finally began to cry. Not because of the furniture. Not really. Furniture can be replaced. It was the betrayal. The realization that my own daughter had waited until I was unconscious. That she had made decisions while I slept. That she had emptied parts of my home without my consent. Evelyn held my hand. You need to know where your things are. I nodded. After she left, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I walked downstairs. The living room looked haunted. Moonlight filled the empty spaces. The silence felt different, as though someone had already begun erasing my life. I walked into the kitchen for water. The trash can sat near the back door. A piece of white paper stuck out from the top. I almost ignored it. Then I saw numbers. I pulled it free. A receipt. My heart began beating faster. The paper listed several items: blue sofa, oak cabinet, coffee table, end tables. Sold. Cash received. There was even a buyer's name. I read the paper 3 times. These things were not in storage. They had been sold while I slept. My hands trembled. I heard footsteps upstairs. Quickly, I folded the paper and slipped it into my pocket. Vanessa appeared at the top of the stairs. "What are you doing?" "Getting water." She looked toward the trash can, then back at me. Neither of us spoke. She returned upstairs. I stood alone in the kitchen. The receipt felt heavy inside my pocket. And for the first time, I understood something terrifying. My daughter wasn't making bad decisions. She wasn't acting out of grief. She wasn't trying to help me. She was hiding things, deliberately, carefully. And somewhere inside this house, there was a truth she was desperately trying to keep from me. I simply didn't know what it was yet. I did not sleep that night. The receipt remained hidden inside my robe pocket while I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every few minutes, I replayed the same questions. Why would Vanessa sell my furniture? Where had my photographs gone? Why had she waited until I was asleep? And most importantly, what else had she done that I didn't know about? Around 3 in the morning, I walked downstairs. The house felt unfamiliar. The empty spaces in the living room seemed larger at night. The moonlight stretched across the bare carpet where our sofa once stood. Michael's chair sat alone beside the window, almost like the last survivor of a disaster. I sat down carefully. For years, that chair had comforted me. That night, it felt like a warning. The next morning, Vanessa acted as though nothing had happened. She made coffee. She asked if I wanted toast. She turned on the morning news. Not once did she mention the missing furniture. Finally, I couldn't remain silent. "I found the receipt." She froze, only for a second. "What receipt?" "The receipt from the furniture." She looked directly at me. "I told you the furniture was gone." "You said it was in storage." She looked away. "I changed my mind." "You sold my things." "It was old furniture." "My husband's things. You never use them." I felt anger rising inside me. "You had no right." She crossed her arms. "I live here too." "No, Vanessa. You stay here." Her face hardened. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said something that frightened me. "Sometimes people have to make decisions for other people." I stared at her. "What does that mean?" "It means you aren't getting younger." I felt suddenly cold. "I'm not helpless." "I didn't say you were." "But you think it." She stood up. "We can't keep living in a museum." "Living?" She said we, as if the house belonged to both of us, as if my life required her permission. That afternoon, Evelyn visited again. She walked into the living room and shook her head. "This still makes me angry." I showed her the receipt. She adjusted her glasses. "Destiny, this isn't just cleaning out a house." "I know." "Did she keep the money?" "I don't know." Evelyn sat quietly. Then she asked a question I had been avoiding. "Do you know who helped her?" I thought about the truck, the men, the phone calls, the late-night conversations. "No." Evelyn looked uncomfortable. I've seen a man here. My heart skipped. What man? Tall, dark hair, maybe 40. When? Several times. I frowned. Vanessa never mentioned anyone. He was here when you were at your doctor's appointment 2 weeks ago. My stomach tightened. He came again last Thursday. What did he look like? She thought for a moment. He seemed nervous. Did they argue? I couldn't hear. The moment Evelyn left, I walked upstairs. Vanessa's bedroom door was slightly open. She was in the shower. Her phone sat on the nightstand. I had never looked through my daughter's phone. Not when she was 15. Not when she was 25. Not ever. But this was no longer about privacy. This was about survival. The screen lit up. One new message. The sender's name read Travis. My heart pounded. The preview contained only a few words. Did she sign anything yet? My hands began shaking. The shower water continued running. I stared at the phone. Another message appeared. We need the house before Friday. The room seemed to tilt. The house. Not the furniture. The house. I heard the water stop. Quickly, I put the phone back exactly where it had been. I walked downstairs. My legs felt weak. For several minutes, I sat in the kitchen, trying to breathe normally. Eventually, Vanessa entered. She smiled. You okay? I looked at my daughter. The little girl who used to sleep with stuffed animals. The teenager who cried after her first heartbreak. The woman I had welcomed back into my home. And suddenly, I didn't know who she was. Who's Travis? Her smile disappeared. What? Travis? She looked away. A friend. What kind of friend? She opened the refrigerator. Just a friend. Then why is he asking if I signed something? Her entire body became still. Slowly she turned toward me. You looked at my phone. I saw the message. That's private. What am I supposed to sign? She grabbed a bottle of water. Nothing. He said you need the house before Friday. Her face lost color. You shouldn't read other people's messages. I shouldn't. The words escaped before I could stop them. You sold my furniture while I was asleep. She slammed the bottle onto the counter. Because somebody has to think about the future. My future. Our future. Again, our. The word frightened me. Who is Travis? She looked at the floor. My boyfriend. Boyfriend? I had never even heard his name. How long? Several months. You never told me. You don't like people I date. How would you know? She shook her head. You wouldn't understand. I stood up. Is he the one who came here? She didn't answer. Is he? Finally, she nodded. The silence between us felt enormous. Did he help move the furniture? She looked away. Vanessa? Yes. The answer hit me harder than I expected, because now there was a stranger involved. A man I had never met. A man discussing my house. A man asking whether I had signed something. That evening, Vanessa left. She said she was meeting friends. But I knew. I watched from the window. A black pickup truck pulled into the driveway. A man stepped out. Tall, dark jacket. He embraced my daughter. They spoke for several minutes. Then he looked toward the house, toward my window. For a brief moment, our eyes met. Even from that distance, I felt something unsettling. He wasn't surprised to see me. It almost felt as though he had been expecting me to watch. Vanessa climbed into the truck. They drove away. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Evelyn. I just saw your daughter leave. Yes. With the man. Yes. She hesitated. Destiny, I need to tell you something. What? I saw them outside your garage yesterday. What were they doing? I think they were measuring. Measuring what? The garage. I felt my stomach twist. Why? I don't know. After hanging up, I walked into Michael's office. The room remained untouched. His desk, his books, his reading glasses, his old filing cabinet. For the first time in months, I opened the bottom drawer. Inside were folders, insurance papers, bank records, property documents. I didn't know what I was looking for, only that I needed answers. Then I heard footsteps outside. Vanessa had returned. Quickly, I closed the drawer. As I stood up, something slipped from one of the folders. A yellow envelope. My name written in Michael's handwriting. I stared at it. The envelope had never been opened. Before I could read it, I heard Vanessa calling downstairs. Mom. I hid the envelope inside my sweater. Yes. Who are you talking to? No one. She walked into the office. For a moment, her eyes moved across the room. The desk, the cabinet, the drawers. Then she looked directly at me. And suddenly, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't worried that I had found the receipt. She wasn't worried that I had seen Travis's message. She was worried that I might find something else, something Michael had left behind, something she didn't want me to see. I waited until Vanessa left the house the following morning before opening Michael's envelope. For nearly an hour, I simply stared at it. My husband's handwriting had always been easy to recognize. The letters leaned slightly to the right. He pressed hard with his pen, leaving small grooves in the paper. Across the front, he had written only 3 words. For Destiny, nothing else. No date, no explanation. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a short letter. If you're reading this, something has probably changed. Trust your instincts. See Ben if you ever feel uncertain about anything involving the house or our finances. He knows everything. Love you always. Michael. I read the letter 4 times. Ben, Benjamin Carter, Michael's attorney, his best friend for almost 40 years. I hadn't spoken to Ben since Michael's funeral. At the bottom of the envelope, another item rested beneath the letter. A business card. Benjamin Carter, attorney at law. On the back, Michael had written, "Promise me you'll call him if you ever need to." Tears filled my eyes. For 3 years, I had left this envelope untouched. And now it suddenly felt as though Michael had reached across time to place his hand on my shoulder. The front door opened. Vanessa was home. Quickly, I placed the letter back inside the envelope and slid it into my purse. Mom. I'm in the kitchen. She entered carrying grocery bags. For a moment, neither of us mentioned Travis. Neither of us mentioned the text messages. The silence between us had become something alive, something dangerous. That afternoon, she brought up the subject herself. Travis wants to meet you. I looked up. When? Soon. Why? She shrugged. He's important to me. I studied her face. If he's important, why didn't you tell me about him? Her expression softened. Because I knew you'd judge him. I haven't even met him. People make mistakes. The words caught my attention. What mistakes? She immediately looked away. Nothing. I remembered the messages, the truck, the hidden relationship. the conversations in the kitchen. And suddenly, I realized I knew almost nothing about the man discussing my house. That evening, I called Evelyn. "Do you know anything about Travis?" She was quiet. "No." "Have you seen him often?" "A few times." "What did you think?" Evelyn hesitated. "He made me uncomfortable." "Why? I can't explain it." After we hung up, I sat alone at the dining table. For 40 years, I had trusted my instincts as a nurse. I could walk into a hospital room and know when something was wrong before monitors showed it. I could recognize fear in patients, pain, dishonesty, and every instinct inside me was screaming now. The next morning, I drove downtown. I hadn't told Vanessa where I was going. Benjamin Carter's office occupied the second floor of an old brick building. The waiting room looked exactly the same. Dark wood, bookshelves, the smell of coffee. When his secretary announced my name, Ben came out personally. He looked older. His hair had turned completely white, but his smile remained the same. "Destiny." He hugged me. "What brings you here?" I nearly cried. "Michael told me to come." His expression changed immediately. He closed his office door. "What happened?" For the next hour, I told him everything. The missing items, the furniture, the receipts, the text messages, Travis, the house. Ben listened carefully. When I finished, he folded his hands. "Have you signed anything?" "No." "Power of attorney?" "No." "Property transfer?" "No." He nodded slowly. "Good." The word frightened me. "Good?" "Yes." "Ben, what's happening?" He looked toward the window. "Tell me about this man." "His name is Travis Morgan." His face changed, only slightly, but I saw it. "You know him?" "No," but his answer came too quickly. "What is it?" He sighed. "I've heard the name." My stomach tightened. "From where?" "Several years ago." "Doing what?" He hesitated. "Financial disputes." I felt cold. "Meaning?" "He was involved in a case concerning an elderly woman." My hands began to shake. "What kind of case?" "Property issues." The room suddenly felt smaller. "Was he charged?" "No." "But—" "There were accusations." "What accusations?" Ben chose his words carefully. "Undue influence." I had worked around elderly patients for decades. I knew exactly what that meant. Manipulation, pressure, financial control, isolation. "He targets older people." "I'm not saying that." "But you're thinking it." He remained silent. I looked down at my hands. "My daughter is involved with him." Ben nodded. "I understand." He opened a drawer. Inside were several folders. He removed one. "This stays here." "What is it?" "Your husband's instructions." I stared at him. Michael left instructions. He asked me to hold certain documents. "Why?" "He worried." I couldn't speak. "Worried about what?" Ben looked directly at me. "He worried that someday someone might pressure you." The tears returned immediately. Michael, even while dying, even while suffering, he had been thinking about me, protecting me. Ben continued. "He trusted your judgment, Destiny. But he also knew how grief changes people." I whispered, "Did he mean Vanessa?" "I don't know." He opened another file. "Your house is protected." What does that mean? I'm not ready to discuss all of it yet. Why not? Because first, I need facts. I felt frustrated. Ben, listen carefully. His voice became firm. Do not sign anything. I won't. Do not discuss finances. I won't. And if anyone pressures you, call me. I nodded. As I prepared to leave, he handed me his private phone number. Then he said something that stayed with me the entire drive home. Your husband loved you very much. I smiled through tears. I know. He worried more about your kindness than your health. I frowned. What does that mean? Michael always said the same thing. What? Ben looked at me sadly. Destiny trusts the people she loves. I drove home in silence. When I pulled into the driveway, a black pickup truck sat outside. Travis. For the first time, I saw him clearly. Tall, dark hair, expensive watch, confident smile. He stepped forward. Mrs. Howard? His voice was smooth, very smooth. He shook my hand. Vanessa talks about you all the time. I forced a smile. Nice to meet you. His eyes briefly moved toward the house, toward the windows, toward the empty living room. You have a beautiful property. Property, not home, not house. Property. Something inside me tightened. During dinner, he asked questions, casual questions. How long had I lived here? Did I still drive? Did I travel? Was maintaining the house difficult? Had I considered downsizing? Vanessa smiled beside him. The two of them looked comfortable together, practiced, almost rehearsed. Then Travis said something that made the entire room go silent. My grandmother sold her house and moved into assisted living. I looked at him. Really? Best decision she ever made. Vanessa nodded. Some places are wonderful now. I set down my fork. I'm not moving. Travis smiled politely. Of course not. But his eyes said something different. Later that evening, after he left, I walked upstairs. Passing Vanessa's bedroom, I heard her whispering on the phone. No. Pause. She met him. Another pause, then, I think she knows something. I stopped breathing. The next words came softly. So we may need to move faster. And suddenly, I realized something terrifying. Travis wasn't the plan. Travis and Vanessa already had a plan. I was simply the obstacle standing in its way. I did not tell Vanessa about my meeting with Benjamin Carter. I did not tell her about Michael's letter. And I certainly did not tell her that my husband had spent his final days trying to protect me from something he feared might happen after he was gone. For the first time in my life, I was keeping secrets from my own daughter. The strange thing was that it didn't make me feel guilty. It made me feel safe. The following morning, Vanessa acted unusually cheerful. She made breakfast. She played music while cleaning the kitchen. She even asked whether I wanted to go shopping with her. The sudden warmth frightened me more than her anger. People often become kind when they want something. I had seen it many times in hospitals. Patients hiding bad news. Families avoiding difficult conversations. People smiling just before asking for something they know they shouldn't ask. That afternoon, while Vanessa was upstairs, I walked through the house with a notebook. Benjamin had told me to document everything, so I did. Missing furniture, missing valuables, dates, receipts, text messages, truck sightings, conversations. The more I wrote, the more frightening everything became. Because once events appeared on paper, they stopped looking like misunderstandings. They became patterns, and patterns tell stories. The story my notes were telling was one I desperately did not want to believe. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Benjamin. "I found something." My heart immediately began racing. "What?" "Travis Morgan filed bankruptcy 6 years ago." I sat down. "That's all?" "No." His voice became serious. "He was involved with an elderly widow in Toledo." I gripped the phone tighter. "What happened?" "He moved into her home." I felt cold. "He helped manage her finances." "What happened to her?" "Her children sued him." My breathing became slower. "Was he convicted?" "No. But he received money from the sale of her property." I closed my eyes. The silence lasted several seconds. Benjamin finally spoke. "I'm not accusing him of anything." "But you're warning me." "Yes." I looked toward the staircase. Vanessa's bedroom door remained closed. "She loves him." Perhaps. Or perhaps he knows exactly what he's doing. After we ended the call, I sat alone in the kitchen. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider something I had been avoiding. What if Vanessa was being manipulated? What if she truly believed Travis loved her? She had been lonely, divorced, financially desperate, heartbroken. People in pain sometimes become easy to influence. But then I remembered the text messages. "Did she sign anything yet? We need the house before Friday." Those were not the words of a confused woman. Those were the words of a plan. Later that afternoon, I opened Michael's office again. For years, I had avoided it. The room still smelled faintly of his aftershave. His books remained exactly where he had left them. His reading glasses sat beside his chair. The bottom drawer of his desk contained several folders. One of them carried my name. Inside were insurance papers, investment records, property documents. And beneath them was a legal document. I recognized Benjamin's signature. I also recognized Michael's. Several pages described something called a family trust. I didn't fully understand it. But one sentence stood out. Any transfer of the primary residence requires written consent from the surviving spouse and independent legal review. I read it twice, then 3 times. If that was true, nobody could simply convince me to sign something quickly. Nobody could pressure me without legal oversight. Michael had built protection into our future. The realization made me cry. Not because of money, not because of the house, but because even while he was dying, he had been thinking about me. That evening, Vanessa knocked on my bedroom door. "Can we talk?" I nodded. She sat on the edge of my bed. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I know things have been difficult." I remained quiet. "I'm trying to help you." "By selling my furniture." Her eyes lowered. "That wasn't handled well." "No." She took a deep breath. "You can't live here forever." The same words. Again, the house, always the house. "I never said I wanted to leave." "You don't have to decide now." My stomach tightened. "Decide what?" She smiled gently. "Just think about the future." I looked at my daughter, the little girl who once climbed into our bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who cried when Michael taught her to drive. The woman sitting beside me now felt almost like a stranger. "Vanessa." "Yes." "Do you want me to leave this house?" Her eyes widened. "No." Then why does everyone keep talking about it? She looked away. Nobody is. Travis is. She became quiet. He's only concerned about you. He barely knows me. She stood up. You don't understand him. Maybe because nobody introduced him until he was discussing my property. Anger flashed across her face. Everything isn't about money. The sentence hung in the room, because by saying it, she had admitted money was involved. She left without saying goodnight. Around 11 that evening, I heard voices downstairs. Quiet voices. I looked out my bedroom window. Travis's truck sat outside. I had not heard him arrive. The kitchen light was on. I moved carefully down the stairs. The voices became clearer. Vanessa, Travis. Running out of time. His voice. She talked to someone. Vanessa answered. I don't know who. Did she find anything? I don't think so. My heart pounded. Travis spoke again. You said this would be easy. Silence. Then Vanessa's voice. She trusts me. The words cut deeper than I expected, because they were true, or at least they had been. I moved one step closer. The floor creaked. Everything became silent. Seconds later, Travis walked into the hallway. His eyes met mine. He smiled. Mrs. Howard? I forced a smile. I didn't know you were here. Just leaving. He picked up his keys. As he passed me, he said something quietly. You should listen to your daughter. The words sounded polite, but they didn't feel polite. After he left, Vanessa looked exhausted. We were just talking. About me? No. I didn't argue. I simply went upstairs, because for the first time in weeks, I had stopped trying to convince myself that everything was normal. The next morning, Benjamin called again. I found your husband's additional instructions. My pulse quickened. What instructions? He wanted me to contact you immediately if I ever believed someone was trying to influence you financially. I sat down. What else? Benjamin became quiet. Then he said the words that changed everything. Michael specifically mentioned Vanessa. I stopped breathing. No. I'm sorry. Why? He was worried. I couldn't speak. About what? He believed she struggled with money. Tears filled my eyes. He loved her. He absolutely did. Then why? Benjamin sighed. Because sometimes the people we love are also the people we worry about most. After we ended the call, I sat alone in the living room, the empty room, the missing furniture, Michael's chair, the silence. For weeks, I had been asking myself whether I was losing my memory, whether I was becoming confused, whether age was making me suspicious. Now I finally understood something. I wasn't losing my mind. I was finally beginning to trust it. And for the first time since Vanessa moved back home, I decided something important. I would stop acting afraid. If my daughter and Travis had a plan, then I needed one too. And I intended to find out exactly what they wanted before they realized I already knew far more than they imagined. The next morning, I decided to stop acting frightened. For weeks, I had reacted to everything. The missing furniture, the lies, the text messages, the late-night conversations. But Benjamin had told me something important. People reveal themselves when they believe they've already won. I thought about those words while making coffee. If Vanessa and Travis truly believed I was confused, grieving, and vulnerable, then perhaps my greatest advantage was allowing them to continue believing it. So when Vanessa came downstairs, I smiled. "Good morning." She looked surprised. "Morning?" "I've been thinking." She froze slightly. "About what?" "Maybe you're right." She stared at me. "About what?" "The house." For a moment, I saw a genuine shock in her eyes. "What do you mean?" I poured coffee slowly. "Maybe I should consider my future." She sat down immediately. "Really?" I nodded. "I'm getting older." The words felt strange, because I wasn't surrendering. I was listening, and people speak very freely when they believe they've gotten what they want. Vanessa became almost cheerful. She spent the entire morning cleaning. She hummed while making lunch. She even suggested inviting Travis for dinner. "He's very good with financial things." I nearly laughed, but instead I smiled. "That sounds nice." Her eyes narrowed slightly. Perhaps she was suspicious. Perhaps she wasn't. Either way, the trap had begun. At noon, I drove to a pharmacy. I purchased something I hadn't used in years. A small digital voice recorder. As a nurse, I had carried one during training. Now I slipped it into my purse. When I arrived home, I called Benjamin. "They want to talk." "Good." "Good." "Yes." "Why?" "Because people who talk eventually say too much." That evening, Vanessa cooked dinner. Candles, wine, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes. It looked more like Thanksgiving than an ordinary Tuesday. Travis arrived carrying flowers. "Mrs. Howard?" "Destiny is fine." He smiled. "Destiny." The three of us sat together. The atmosphere felt strange, almost rehearsed. For several minutes, we discussed harmless topics. Weather, traffic, movies. Then Travis finally reached the subject. "Vanessa says you've been thinking about the future." I nodded. "I'm considering things." "That's wise." He leaned back comfortably. "A lot of people your age decide to simplify." Your age. Again. People always become old when someone wants something from them. "I've lived here 40 years. Travis smiled. "Exactly." I said nothing. He continued. "The house is large." "Yes." "Expensive to maintain." "Sometimes." "Property taxes." I took a sip of water. "You're very interested in my house." Vanessa immediately laughed. "Mom!" But Travis remained calm. "I work in real estate investments." That surprised me. Vanessa had never mentioned it. "What kind of investments?" "Properties." I looked directly at him. "What company?" For the first time all evening, he hesitated. "Mostly independent work." Benjamin's warning returned to me. "Careful. Listen. Let them talk." Vanessa reached across the table. "We only worry about you." "We—" She smiled. "All of us." I glanced toward my purse sitting beside my chair. The recorder inside was running. Every word, every sentence, every suggestion. Dinner continued. Eventually, Travis spoke again. "My grandmother moved into a senior community." Vanessa nodded. "The one I showed you online." I looked at her. "What community?" "The one near Columbus." I had never seen anything. "You showed me—" "You forgot." Forgot. There it was again. The word had become their weapon. Whenever I disagreed, I had forgotten. Whenever I objected, I was confused. Whenever I remembered something differently, I was mistaken. I smiled. Perhaps I did. Travis leaned forward. The facilities are beautiful. I don't want to leave Cleveland. You wouldn't be alone. I folded my napkin. I'm not alone now. Silence. The room suddenly felt smaller. Then Vanessa spoke. Mom, what happens if you get sick? What happens if you do? She blinked. What? Anything can happen to anyone. Travis laughed softly. Of course. But I noticed his eyes, calculating, watching, measuring every response. After dinner, Vanessa brought out papers. My heart immediately began beating faster. Not legal papers, not yet. Brochures, senior communities, retirement apartments, smiling older couples, gardens, activities, swimming pools. I looked through them carefully. These are very nice. Vanessa smiled. I thought so too. Travis pointed to one. This one has financial advisors. Another. Excellent medical care. Another. Very secure. I asked quietly, how much do these places cost? Vanessa answered quickly. Your house could cover everything. There it was. Finally. The house. Not my health, not loneliness, not safety. The house. I looked down, pretending to think. What would happen to this place? Travis answered. You could sell. Vanessa nodded. We could help. We, again. I felt sick, but I continued. Maybe I should talk to someone. Both of them became still. What do you mean? Vanessa asked. A lawyer. Travis spoke immediately. Lawyers complicate things. The answer came too fast, too naturally. I looked at him. Why? He smiled. They cost money. I nodded slowly. My husband trusted his attorney. Silence. Vanessa looked nervous. Travis leaned back. Of course. For the next hour, they continued discussing options. Selling, moving, simplifying, freedom, security. But underneath every sentence, I heard the same message. Leave the house. Leave the house. Leave the house. Eventually, Travis left. Vanessa cleaned the kitchen. I walked upstairs, but before entering my bedroom, I stopped. Their voices floated upward from below. Travis had returned, quietly. The back door. I moved closer. Vanessa whispered. She's changing her mind. Good. But she mentioned a lawyer. Silence. Then Travis. You said she never talks to lawyers. I know. Did she find something? I don't think so. Another silence. Then words that made my blood run cold. If she signs the power of attorney first, everything becomes easier. Power of attorney. My knees weakened. Benjamin had asked me specifically. Had I signed one? No. Not yet. Vanessa spoke. She trusts me. Travis answered. Then use that. I covered my mouth, because until that moment, some small part of me had still hoped my daughter was simply being manipulated. But now I heard her. Not frightened, not confused, not resisting, participating. A floorboard creaked beneath my foot. Silence. My heart stopped. Did you hear that? Vanessa whispered. Footsteps. I hurried into my bedroom and closed the door. Seconds later, someone stopped outside. No knock, no voice, just silence. After a moment, the footsteps disappeared. I sat on the bed, shaking. Then I opened my purse. I removed the recorder. The small red light still blinked. Every conversation, every suggestion, every discussion about selling my house, every mention of power of attorney, recorded. For the first time in weeks, I felt something stronger than fear, control. And as I listened to their voices playing softly through the speaker, I finally understood something. They thought I was an old woman slowly losing her memory. They thought grief had made me weak. They thought loneliness had made me helpless. But they had forgotten one important thing. For 40 years, I had been a nurse. I had spent my entire career recognizing danger before other people saw it. And now, I had finally begun recognizing it inside my own home. The next morning, I played the recording 3 times. Each time, I heard Vanessa say, "She trusts me." Something inside me broke a little more. Trust had always been the foundation of our relationship. When she was 7 years old, she trusted me to hold her hand crossing the street. When she was 16, she trusted me after her first car accident. When she was 39 and standing on my porch with 2 suitcases, she trusted me enough to ask for help. And now she was using that trust as part of a strategy. I sat alone in Michael's chair, the only major piece of furniture left in the room. The chair had become my anchor, my witness, the last thing in the house that still felt safe. Around 10 that morning, Evelyn knocked on the front door. She entered carrying a small box. "You look tired." "I didn't sleep." She sat beside me. Neither did I. I managed a weak smile. "What happened?" She placed the box on the floor. "I found something." My stomach tightened. "What?" Evelyn opened the lid. Inside were printed photographs, several photographs, and a flash drive. I stared at them. "What is this?" "My grandson installed security cameras outside my house last year." I looked up. "You have cameras?" She nodded. "I forgot about them." My hands began shaking. "Evelyn?" I checked the recordings. I could barely breathe. She handed me the first photograph. A white moving truck, parked in my driveway. Date and time clearly visible. The day I had fallen asleep. The next photograph showed 2 men carrying my blue sofa. The third showed Travis. He was standing beside the truck, holding paperwork. And then came the 4th picture, Vanessa. Signing something. My entire body went cold. "No." Evelyn looked at me sadly. "I'm sorry." I stared at the photograph. There was no mistake. My daughter had sold my furniture. My daughter had stood outside my home signing papers while I slept upstairs. And standing beside her was Travis. I looked through the remaining pictures. The oak cabinet, the coffee table, Michael's side table, everything being loaded into the truck. Every lie, every explanation, every excuse, destroyed by photographs. Evelyn handed me the flash drive. "The video is on here." I began to cry, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, because pictures leave very little room for denial. For weeks, I had still hoped. Perhaps there had been a misunderstanding. Perhaps Vanessa was confused. Perhaps Travis had pressured her. But these photographs showed something else. They showed cooperation, planning, agreement. Evelyn held my hand. "What are you going to do?" I looked at the pictures. "I don't know." But deep inside, I knew exactly who needed to see them. Benjamin. That afternoon, I drove directly to his office. He studied each photograph carefully. Then he watched several minutes of video. The room became very quiet. Finally, he removed his glasses. This is very important. Because of Travis. Because of Vanessa. I looked down. She signed papers. Yes. Whose papers? We don't know yet. He pointed to one photograph. Can you enlarge this? The paper in Vanessa's hands wasn't clear, but one thing was visible. A signature. Benjamin looked at me. Does that resemble your signature? My heart nearly stopped. No. Are you sure? Yes. He nodded slowly. If she signed your name, that's serious. The word serious felt far too small. On the drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about my daughter standing in the driveway, signing something, looking perfectly calm, no guilt, no hesitation, only purpose. When I entered the house, Vanessa sat in the kitchen. She looked nervous. Where were you? Out. You didn't answer your phone. I was busy. She studied me. You seem different. I smiled slightly. Do I? She didn't answer. Instead, she opened the refrigerator. We need groceries. I can go tomorrow. We're out of milk. Her voice sounded strained, as if she could sense something changing. That evening, Travis arrived again. I remained in the living room while they talked in the kitchen. This time, I wasn't trying to hide. I wanted them to know I was listening. Eventually, Travis entered the room. He smiled. How are you feeling today? Fine. Sleeping better? The question startled me. What? The tea Vanessa made helped, didn't it? I looked directly at him. What tea? He hesitated. The herbal tea. My heart began beating harder. The tea. The afternoon I had slept for 5 hours. The furniture disappearing while I slept. I turned toward Vanessa. What did you put in the tea? She looked confused. What? The tea? It was chamomile. Travis quickly laughed. It knocked you out. Knocked you out? The phrase felt wrong, too casual, too comfortable, as though my unusual sleep had already been discussed. I said nothing, but inside another piece of the puzzle moved into place. Later that night, after Travis left, I heard Vanessa crying, softly, behind her bedroom door. For a moment, I stood outside, because despite everything, she was still my daughter. Part of me wanted to open the door, to hold her, to ask what had happened to us. But then I remembered the photographs, the signatures, the truck, the lies. I returned downstairs. The living room remained mostly empty. Only Michael's chair, a lamp, and memories. I sat quietly. At midnight, my phone rang. Benjamin. I'm sorry to call this late. What is it? I found something. My stomach tightened. What? The company that bought your furniture. I waited. Travis's brother owns it. The room seemed to spin. What? The buyer and Travis are connected. I closed my eyes. So this wasn't random. No. Was the furniture actually sold? Yes? Can I get it back? He hesitated. Possibly. I felt tears forming again. Michael's cabinet, our sofa, the family photographs, everything scattered. Everything sold. Benjamin spoke quietly. Destiny. Yes? You need to prepare yourself. For what? I believe they're going to ask you to sign something very soon. I looked toward the staircase. Vanessa's bedroom light still glowed beneath her door. How soon? I don't know. But they're moving quickly. After we hung up, I sat alone in the darkness. And for the first time, I allowed myself to ask a question I had been avoiding. What if Vanessa wasn't trying to help me at all? What if she was trying to replace me, replace my decisions, replace my authority, replace my ownership? And suddenly, I remembered something Evelyn had said weeks earlier. Sometimes that's the problem. You've spent your whole life taking care of people. She had been right. I had spent my entire life protecting others. My patients, my husband, my daughter. But now at 68 years old, perhaps it was finally time to protect myself. Because the evidence was no longer hidden. The photographs existed. The recordings existed. The lies existed. And somewhere very close, I could feel the next move coming. Whatever Vanessa and Travis planned, they were almost out of time. And so was I. The following morning, I woke before sunrise. For several minutes, I remained in bed, listening to the house. The refrigerator humming downstairs. The pipes rattling softly. Rain tapping against the windows. Vanessa's footsteps above my bedroom. The ordinary sounds of home. And yet nothing felt ordinary anymore. I had photographs. I had recordings. I had receipts. I had proof. But the most painful thing I possessed was certainty. Because certainty leaves no room for hope. For weeks I had told myself that my daughter was confused, lonely, manipulated, desperate. Now I knew she had become part of something much larger. And somehow, that hurt more than the lies. When I entered the kitchen, Vanessa was already sitting at the table. She looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. For a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to stay awake worrying before school exams. "Morning," she said. "Morning." Neither of us touched our coffee. Finally, she spoke. "Travis thinks we should all sit down." My stomach tightened. About what? The future. The future. Always the future. Never the past. Never the missing furniture. Never the lies. Only the future. "I'll think about it." She nodded, but her hands trembled slightly. That frightened me, because nervous people become unpredictable. Around noon, Benjamin called. "I've prepared some documents." "What kind of protective documents?" I sat down. "What does that mean?" "It means nobody can represent you legally without your consent." "I haven't signed anything." "I know, but I want you protected." I hesitated. "Benjamin?" "Yes. What if my daughter hates me?" His voice softened. Destiny protecting yourself is not the same thing as punishing someone. After we hung up, I stood at the kitchen window. Vanessa sat outside on the back porch. She was crying. For several minutes, I considered joining her. Part of me still wanted to hold her, to ask what had happened, to ask who she had become. But then her phone rang. She answered immediately. "Travis." I couldn't hear every word, only fragments. "She's acting differently." "I don't know." "She mentioned Ben." Silence. Then, "No, I don't think she found the papers." The papers. Another secret. Another hidden piece. My heart sank. That evening, Travis arrived earlier than usual. He entered carrying a bottle of wine. Vanessa had prepared dinner again. Candles, music, smiles. The performance continued. Halfway through dinner, Travis looked directly at me. "Destiny, can I ask you something?" I nodded. Have you thought about what happens if you become ill? Vanessa lowered her eyes. I answered calmly. Everybody becomes ill eventually. Exactly. He leaned forward. Someone has to make decisions. I said nothing. He continued. Medical decisions. Financial decisions. Property decisions. My heart began beating harder. Here it comes. He reached into his briefcase. Vanessa became very still. A folder appeared, white, neatly organized. He placed it on the table. What's that? I asked. Just paperwork. Vanessa spoke softly. It's nothing serious. I looked at the folder. Then why bring it? Travis smiled. It's simply power of attorney. The room became silent. Even the refrigerator seemed to stop humming. I looked at Vanessa. She couldn't meet my eyes. What exactly does it say? It allows Vanessa to help you if necessary. If necessary. Only if something happens. I folded my hands. Why now? Travis answered immediately. Planning ahead is responsible. I looked directly at him. Who prepared it? A friend. A lawyer. Not exactly. I almost laughed. Benjamin's voice echoed in my head. Do not sign anything. I leaned back. I'll have Benjamin review it. Everything changed. Vanessa looked up immediately. Travis stopped smiling. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Why? He asked. Because he's my attorney. You don't need attorneys for family matters. I looked at him. My husband disagreed. Vanessa suddenly spoke. Mom, why don't you trust me? The question pierced me because the answer was sitting on my phone. The recordings, the photographs, the messages. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I do trust you. She shook her head. No, you don't. I looked at her. You sold my furniture while I slept. Silence. I said I was sorry. No, you explained it. Tears appeared in her eyes. I'm trying to help you. By taking my things, her voice rose. You don't need them. My husband's chair. She looked away. The house is too much. There it was again. The house. Everything always returned to the house. I stood up. I'm not signing anything. Travis remained calm. We're only trying to protect you. I already have protection. Vanessa frowned. What does that mean? I looked at her. It means your father thought ahead. For a brief moment, I saw fear. Real fear. Travis noticed it too. What did Michael do? I smiled. That's between my husband and me. The rest of dinner ended quickly. Travis left early. Vanessa cleaned the kitchen in silence. Finally, she turned toward me. Did you talk to Benjamin? I froze. Why would you ask that? Because you keep mentioning him. I said nothing. She stepped closer. What did he tell you? About what? The house. The fear in her voice was unmistakable. Not concern. Fear. I realized something important. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing whatever plan existed. That night around midnight, I heard arguing downstairs. Real arguing. I quietly stepped onto the staircase. Vanessa and Travis stood in the kitchen. You said she wouldn't ask questions. I didn't know she'd contact him. What did she tell him? I don't know. You need to find out. Vanessa began crying. I can't do this. Yes, you can. I don't want to hurt her. My heart stopped. Travis lowered his voice. It's too late now. Too late, the words echoed inside me. Then Vanessa said something I never expected. If she finds out everything, she'll hate me. Travis answered quietly. She doesn't need to know everything. The floor beneath my foot creaked. They became silent. I quickly returned to my room. Seconds later, footsteps climbed the stairs. Vanessa stopped outside my door. She didn't knock. She simply stood there. I could hear her breathing. After nearly a minute, she walked away. The next morning, Evelyn arrived unexpectedly. She carried another envelope. What is it? She looked nervous. I found this in my mailbox. Inside was a folded piece of paper. A property listing. My house. My address. An estimated selling price. Several handwritten notes. One sentence had been circled. Potential sale within 30 days. My knees nearly gave out. Because my home had already been discussed. Already evaluated. Already considered for sale. And nobody had asked me. Evelyn looked at me carefully. What are you going to do? I stared at the paper. The estimated price. The notes. The future they had already planned. Finally, I spoke. I'm done being afraid. That afternoon, I called Benjamin. I think they're ready. He became quiet. Good. Good. Because now we stop reacting. What do we do? He paused. Then he said the words that changed everything. I want them to bring you to the signing. My heart nearly stopped. The signing, yes. But I won't sign. I know. Then why? His voice became calm. Because sometimes people reveal the truth when they believe they've already won. And for the first time in weeks, I realized something. The next move would belong to them, but the ending might finally belong to me. The signing was scheduled for Thursday morning. Vanessa told me over breakfast. She tried to sound casual. There's a meeting tomorrow. I buttered my toast slowly. What kind of meeting? Just paperwork. I looked up. What paperwork? She avoided my eyes. Things we discussed. We discussed many things. Her hands trembled slightly around her coffee cup. Power of attorney. There it was. No more pretending. No more brochures. No more discussions about retirement communities. Now the real purpose had finally arrived. I remained quiet. Mom? I looked at her. Do I have a choice? Pain crossed her face. Of course. But both of us knew that wasn't entirely true, because for weeks they had been building toward this moment. The furniture, the conversations, the pressure, the fear, the suggestions that I was forgetful, the questions about my health, the concern about my future. Everything had been leading here. That afternoon, I met Benjamin. He reviewed every document that Vanessa had emailed the previous evening. His expression darkened immediately. This is not limited power of attorney. What does that mean? He removed his glasses. This gives extremely broad authority. I stared at him. Authority over what? Finances, property, bank accounts, legal decisions? My stomach tightened. Everything. He nodded. If you sign this, Vanessa would gain enormous control. I sat silently. Benjamin leaned forward. Destiny. I need you to trust me. I do. Go to the meeting. My heart raced. You want me to go? Yes. What if they pressure me? They will. What if they become angry? They probably will. I looked down. What do I do? Benjamin smiled slightly. Wait. Wait for what? For me. The following morning arrived gray and cold. Vanessa dressed carefully, a navy blue blouse, pearl earrings, clothes she normally wore to job interviews. Travis arrived exactly at 9. He seemed unusually confident. Ready? I nodded. The drive felt endless. Nobody spoke. Rain struck the windshield. The radio remained off. When we finally arrived, I realized we were not going to a bank, nor a law office. It was a small titled company on the edge of town. My pulse quickened. A woman greeted us. Mrs. Howard. She smiled professionally. Please come in. A conference room waited. A stack of papers sat on the table. Pens, folders, coffee, everything prepared, everything planned. Travis sat beside Vanessa. I sat alone. The woman introduced herself. My name is Karen. She began explaining documents. Most of her words disappeared into background noise. Because I noticed something else. Vanessa looked nervous. Travis looked impatient, and neither of them expected me to ask questions. Finally, Karen slid papers toward me. If you'll sign here. I picked up the pen. The room became perfectly silent. I looked down. Power of attorney, property authorization, financial authority. I heard my own heartbeat. Vanessa smiled weakly. It's okay, Mom. Travis nodded. This protects you. I looked at the papers. Then I asked quietly, Who prepared these? Karen answered. Mr. Morgan requested them. Mr. Morgan, not my daughter. Travis. I turned toward him. Why? He smiled. Because Vanessa asked for help. I placed the pen on the table. I'd like my attorney to review these. Silence. Karen looked confused. Vanessa's face turned pale. Travis leaned forward. There's no need. There is. Vanessa spoke quickly. Mom Benjamin doesn't need to be involved. I looked at her. Why not? Because he's old-fashioned. I almost laughed. Old-fashioned. The attorney Michael trusted for 40 years. The attorney who protected our family. Travis spoke again. Lawyers complicate family matters. I folded my hands. My husband trusted lawyers. Vanessa's voice shook. Please. The single word nearly broke me, because for one moment I saw my daughter again. Not the woman selling furniture, not the woman discussing my house, simply my little girl. But then I remembered the photographs, the signatures, the lies. I looked directly at her. Why are you in such a hurry? Nobody answered. I continued. Why did you sell my furniture? Vanessa lowered her eyes. Mom, why did you lie about storage? Travis interrupted. That's unrelated. I turned toward him. No, it isn't. Karen looked increasingly uncomfortable. What furniture? Nobody answered. I opened my purse, slowly, carefully. I removed the photographs, the truck, the sofa, the cabinet, Travis, Vanessa signing papers. Karen stared. What is this? I placed another photograph on the table, then another. Vanessa's hands began shaking. Mom! I looked at my daughter. You sold my furniture while I slept. Tears filled her eyes. I was trying. No. My voice surprised even me. You were lying. Travis stood. This isn't necessary. I looked directly at him. The company that bought my furniture belongs to your brother. His face changed. Karen looked confused. What? I placed the receipt beside the photographs. The room became silent. Then came the sound of a door opening. Benjamin Carter walked inside. Everything stopped. Vanessa's face lost all color. Travis froze. Benjamin carried a briefcase. He sat beside me. "Good morning." Karen immediately stood. "Sir, I represent Mrs. Howard." He placed several documents on the table. "She will not be signing today." Travis spoke first. "This is a misunderstanding." Benjamin looked at him calmly. "No." He opened another folder. "The property is protected by a family trust." Silence. Karen frowned. "What trust?" Benjamin handed her paperwork. She read quickly, then looked at me. "Mrs. Howard cannot transfer authority without independent legal review." I looked toward Vanessa. She was crying. Travis looked angry. Benjamin continued. "Additionally, there are concerns regarding financial pressure." Karen slowly removed the papers from in front of me. The sound seemed deafening. Travis stood. "This is ridiculous." Benjamin looked at him. "Your involvement with previous elderly property disputes has also been documented." The room became silent again. Vanessa looked at Travis. "What?" He said nothing. Benjamin continued. "The meeting is over." Karen nodded immediately. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Howard." I slowly stood. My knees trembled, not from fear, from relief, because for weeks I had been drowning. And finally, someone had pulled me to the surface. As we prepared to leave, Vanessa suddenly spoke. "Mom!" I turned. Tears streamed down her face. "I never wanted this." The words hung in the room. Travis looked furious. Benjamin remained silent, and for one brief moment I saw something different in my daughter. Not anger, not manipulation, fear, real fear. As though the entire plan had just collapsed, as though she suddenly realized there would be consequences. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to comfort her. But then I remembered standing alone in my empty living room. The missing furniture, the lies, the messages, the signatures. So I simply said, "You should have told me the truth." And then I walked out. Because the signing had failed. The papers remained unsigned. The house remained mine. But the hardest part was still ahead. Because now, for the first time, Vanessa would have to explain why she had done all of this. And I wasn't sure either of us was ready to hear the answer. When we returned home after the failed signing, the silence inside the car felt heavier than any argument. Travis drove. Vanessa sat in the passenger seat. I sat alone in the back. Nobody spoke. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained dark. The windshield wipers moved slowly across the glass, even though there was nothing left to clear away. Much like our family. By the time we reached the house, Travis parked in the driveway but didn't turn off the engine. Vanessa looked at him. He looked at her. Some silent conversation passed between them. Then he finally spoke. "I think you should both talk." For once, I agreed. Vanessa followed me into the kitchen. The house felt emptier than ever. The missing furniture had left open spaces everywhere. Every room seemed to remind us of what had been taken. I sat at the table. She remained standing. For nearly a minute, neither of us spoke. Then I asked the question I had carried for weeks. "Why?" Her eyes immediately filled with tears. "Mom, no lies." She lowered herself into the chair opposite me. I didn't know what to do. "About what?" "My life." I waited. She stared at her hands. After Kevin left, everything fell apart. I had known that. The divorce, the debts, the job loss. But somehow I realized I had only known the surface. There were credit cards. How much? She whispered the number, $38,000. I stopped breathing. Vanessa? I kept paying one card with another. Tears rolled down her face. I thought I could fix it. Why didn't you tell me? Because you already lost Dad. She looked up. You were grieving. I remained silent. There were collection agencies, lawsuits, late notices. I couldn't breathe anymore. For the first time in weeks, she sounded honest, not rehearsed, not careful, just broken. What about Travis? She wiped her eyes. He helped me. How? He paid some bills. When? Last year. How much? She looked away. About $20,000. My heart sank. Why? He loved me. I said nothing. Because people who lend money often expect repayment. Eventually. Somehow. He said we could build a future. The word future again. Always the future. What did he want? Her silence answered before her words did. He said the house could solve everything. I closed my eyes. The house, always the house. When? Months ago? What exactly did he say? She began crying harder. He said you were alone. He said you didn't need so much space. He said I deserved another chance. And eventually he said, she stopped. What? That Dad would have wanted to help me. The words hurt more than anything. Because Michael had adored his daughter. He would have done almost anything for her. But he would never have wanted this. Never. I looked at her. So, you sold my furniture? She nodded slowly. He told me it would help. Help who? She couldn't answer. I stood up, walked to the window. For years, I had looked through that kitchen window beside Michael. Morning coffee, snowstorms, sunsets, ordinary moments. Now everything felt different. Finally, I turned. Did you sign my name? Her face lost all color. Silence. Vanessa? Tears streamed down her face. Yes. The room became perfectly still. What did you sign? The furniture papers? Anything else? She shook her head violently. No. Are you telling me the truth? Yes. I wanted to believe her. I truly did. But trust had become complicated. That evening, Travis returned. I heard his truck. The front door opened. He entered the kitchen. He looked at Vanessa. She looked devastated. He looked at me. Can we talk? I remained standing. About what? He sighed. Things got out of control. I almost laughed. Out of control. As if this had been an accident. As if furniture had simply disappeared by itself. As if papers had somehow arrived without planning. What exactly got out of control? He sat down. I never wanted anyone hurt. I stared at him. My husband's furniture was sold. He looked away. We needed money. There it was. Finally. Not concern, not protection. Money. My daughter needed help. Your daughter? I asked. He corrected himself. Vanessa. I sat again. Did you love her? He looked genuinely surprised. Yes. Then why pressure her? His face hardened slightly. I didn't. I opened my purse, removed the recorder, placed it on the table. His eyes immediately changed. I pressed play. If she signs the power of attorney first, everything becomes easier. Silence. Vanessa covered her mouth. Travis stared at the recorder. She trusts me. Then use that. The recording ended. Nobody moved. Finally, I asked, what exactly becomes easier? He looked exhausted. For the first time, his confidence disappeared. The debts. Whose debts? Vanessa's. Only Vanessa's. He hesitated, and in that hesitation, I found the truth. How much do you owe? His eyes dropped. About 60,000. Vanessa looked shocked. What? He couldn't look at her. You told me 30. Silence. You lied to me. He said nothing. I suddenly understood. The debts, the pressure, the urgency, the signing. Perhaps Vanessa had been manipulated after all, but not in the way I originally imagined. She had participated. She had lied. She had betrayed me. Yet she had also been trapped. Travis finally spoke. There were investments. What investments? They failed. Whose money? He looked directly at me. Mine. For the first time, I saw fear in him. Real fear. Not fear of me. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing his solution. My house. The room remained silent. Then Vanessa whispered, You used me. He turned toward her. No. Yes. Tears streamed down her face. You told me we'd start over. We can. By taking my mother's house? He stood up. That's not fair. She stood as well. No, Travis. None of this is fair. For the first time since he entered my life, I watched him lose his calm. His voice became sharp. Do you think your debts disappear without money? Vanessa stepped backward. I stood immediately. Leave. He looked at me. Destiny. Leave. The silence lasted several seconds. Finally, he picked up his jacket. At the door, he stopped. You don't understand what you've done. I looked directly at him. Actually, I think I finally do. He left. The truck disappeared into the darkness. Vanessa collapsed into a chair. She cried harder than I had ever seen. Not like a child, not like a woman, like someone watching her entire life fall apart. I sat beside her. For several minutes, we simply cried together. Finally, she whispered, I never wanted to hurt you. I answered honestly. But you did. She nodded. I know. For the first time in weeks, there were no lies. No secret messages, no hidden plans, only pain, real pain. And sitting beside my daughter, I realized something difficult. Travis had manipulated her. But he had not controlled every decision. She had chosen some things herself. And now both of us would have to live with those choices. Outside, the night grew darker. Inside, the truth had finally begun to emerge. But one question still remained. What exactly had happened to my furniture? And could the pieces of my home and my family ever truly come back? The morning after Travis left the house felt strangely quiet. For the first time in weeks, his truck was not parked outside. No text messages interrupted breakfast. No whispered conversations drifted through the kitchen. Only silence. Vanessa sat across from me holding a cup of coffee she never drank. Her eyes were swollen. She looked exhausted. And suddenly, for the first time in a very long while, she looked like my daughter again. Not the woman who had lied to me. Not the woman who signed papers. Simply My child. Neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, "He hasn't answered my calls." I nodded. "What did you expect?" She stared at the table. "I don't know." After several minutes, she finally said the words I had waited weeks to hear. "I'm sorry." The words sounded small, fragile, almost broken. But they were real. I looked at her carefully. "Sorry for what?" She began crying. "For everything. The furniture. The lies. The papers. The house." I remained quiet, because forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. She continued. "When Kevin left me, I felt like a failure." I listened. Then I lost my job. The bills came. The collection agencies called every day. She wiped her eyes. "Travis made me feel safe." At first, I asked quietly, "When did things change?" She took a deep breath. "When he started talking about the house." "And you agreed?" She nodded. I kept telling myself it was temporary. What was everything? The furniture, the power of attorney, the plans. She looked at me. "I told myself I was helping you." I finally spoke. "No." Her eyes filled again. "You were helping yourself." The truth hurt both of us. Around noon, Benjamin called. "I have good news." For the first time in days, I felt something resembling hope. "What happened?" "We located most of your furniture." My heart nearly stopped. "The furniture. Travis's brother still has it?" I sat down. "The sofa?" "Yes." "The cabinet?" "Yes." "What about Michael's things?" "Most of them." Tears immediately filled my eyes, because suddenly, the missing pieces of my life were no longer gone forever. Benjamin continued. "The brother says he didn't know the circumstances." "Will he return them?" "He has agreed." I covered my mouth. For weeks I had imagined my husband's belongings scattered across strangers' homes, gone forever. And now there was hope. After I hung up, I told Vanessa. She burst into tears. "I'm so sorry." I looked at her. "Help me bring them home." She nodded immediately. The following afternoon, Benjamin accompanied us. The warehouse sat on the edge of the city, a large metal building, cold, quiet. Inside, rows of furniture stood beneath fluorescent lights. And there it was, my blue sofa, Michael's oak cabinet, the coffee table, the lamp. For several seconds, I couldn't move, because objects carry memories. The sofa where Michael watched baseball, the cabinet holding family photographs, the table where we celebrated birthdays. These were not simply possessions, they were pieces of our life. Vanessa stood beside me crying. "I did this." I said nothing. She walked toward the cabinet. Her hands shook as she touched the wood. "Dad loved this." "Yes." "I don't know what happened to me." Benjamin quietly stepped away to give us privacy. Vanessa sat on the sofa, the same sofa she had sold, and she cried harder than I had ever seen. "I thought if I fixed my life, everything would get better." I sat beside her. "But you tried to fix it with things that weren't yours." She nodded. "I know." For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then she asked the question I had been dreading. "Do you hate me?" The answer came immediately. "No." She looked surprised. "I'm angry. I'm hurt. But I don't hate you." Because mothers rarely stop loving their children. even when they should, even when it hurts, even when it breaks them. The furniture returned home over the next 2 days. The movers carefully carried each piece inside. The living room slowly became familiar again. The sofa, the table, the cabinet, the lamp. Every item returned to its place. Almost. Only one thing had never left. Michael's chair. The chair remained beside the window exactly where it had always been, as if it had guarded the house while everything else disappeared. On Saturday afternoon, I found Vanessa sitting in that chair. She held one of Michael's old photographs. He was teaching her to ride a bicycle. She looked up. He believed in me. Yes. And I disappointed him. I sat beside her. You disappointed yourself. Tears rolled down her face. I forged your signature. Yes. I lied. Yes. I let someone manipulate me. I nodded. She whispered, "Can you ever trust me again?" That question was harder. Because forgiveness can happen quickly. Trust takes time. Finally, I answered honestly. I don't know. She nodded. I understand. That evening, she packed her suitcases. I stood in the hallway. Where are you going? I rented a small apartment. My heart hurt. Part of me wanted her to stay. Part of me needed space. She looked around the house. I think you need your home back. I couldn't argue. Before leaving, she handed me an envelope. What is this? The money. I frowned. From what? I sold my jewelry. Vanessa. It's not enough. Inside was a cashier's check. Everything she had. I can't fix everything. She looked down. But I want to start. For several moments, we simply stood there. Mother, daughter, both broken, both grieving different things. Finally, she hugged me. The first real hug in months. She whispered into my shoulder. I'm sorry, Mom. I closed my eyes. So am I. After she left, the house became quiet again. Not lonely, just quiet. I sat in Michael's chair. The sunset filled the living room. The furniture had returned. The lies had been exposed. Travis was gone, but healing had only begun. As darkness settled outside, I noticed something on the coffee table. Vanessa had left the old photograph. Michael teaching her to ride a bicycle. On the back, written in Michael's handwriting, were words I had never seen before. She will fall sometimes. Help her stand up. I stared at the words, and for the first time in weeks, I began to cry. Because perhaps Michael had understood something long before I did. Children sometimes make terrible mistakes. Parents sometimes suffer because of them. But love survives things that pride cannot. And sitting alone in the house we built together, I realized that the furniture had never been the greatest loss. The real loss had been trust. The real challenge now was whether two broken women could slowly build it again. 3 weeks passed after Vanessa moved out. For the first time in months, my house belonged to me again. The furniture had returned. The blue sofa sat beneath the window. The oak cabinet once again held family photographs. Michael's books rested exactly where he had left them. Even the lamp beside his chair glowed softly each evening. And yet something was still missing. Peace. Because healing does not arrive simply because the crisis ends. Sometimes the silence afterward is the hardest part. Every morning, I still expected to hear Vanessa walking downstairs. Every evening, I looked toward the driveway. Part of me missed my daughter. Another part still felt afraid of her. Benjamin continued helping me untangle everything. One afternoon, he visited the house carrying several folders. The financial situation is becoming clearer. I poured coffee. How bad is it? He sighed. Worse than Vanessa knew. I sat down. How much? Travis owed considerably more than he admitted. He used several loans. Credit lines. Private investors. I felt cold. Did he target my house from the beginning? Benjamin hesitated. I believe so. The answer hurt, because it meant the relationship itself may have started with a purpose. Did he love her? Benjamin looked at me. I don't know. But I do know he needed money. That evening, Vanessa called. The first phone call since she left. Her voice sounded small. Mom? Hello? Silence. How are you? I'm okay. Another silence. I started therapy. The words surprised me. Really? Twice a week. I sat quietly. My counselor says I spent years trying to make people rescue me. I said nothing. First Kevin, then Travis, and when they failed, I expected you to save me. My eyes filled with tears, because this was the first time I had heard her accept responsibility. Not excuses, not blame, responsibility. She continued. I sold my car. Why? To pay some debts. I closed my eyes. For years, I had solved her problems, paid bills, given money, fixed situations. Perhaps this was the first time she had ever truly faced consequences. Several days later, Benjamin called again. They located Michael's watch. I nearly dropped the phone. The watch. Yes. Tears immediately filled my eyes. The watch had never returned with the furniture. It had disappeared first, months earlier. Where was it? A pawn shop. I couldn't speak. Benjamin continued gently. It was sold by Travis. My heart broke all over again, because the watch had belonged to Michael. The watch he wore every day. The watch he wore during our wedding. The watch he wore when Vanessa was born. And somebody had sold it. Like it was nothing. The next afternoon, Benjamin brought it to me. I opened the small box slowly. There it was, scratched, worn, perfect. I held it against my chest and cried. Not because of the watch itself, but because it felt as though another piece of Michael had finally come home. A week later, Evelyn knocked on my door. She carried a small envelope. What's this? It was left in my mailbox. My stomach tightened. The envelope contained a handwritten letter from Vanessa. She had not mailed it to me directly. Perhaps she was afraid. Perhaps she thought I wouldn't read it. I sat at the kitchen table. The letter was 6 pages long. She wrote about her childhood, about Michael, about me. And then I reached the part that finally explained everything. When Michael became sick, I spent most of my time caring for him. Hospitals, doctors, chemotherapy, medications, fear. I remembered those years as painful, but necessary. Vanessa remembered them differently. She wrote, I felt like I disappeared. Dad needed you. Everyone needed you. And I told myself I didn't. Tears rolled down my face, because I had never seen it, not once. I had believed I was protecting both of them, but grief had divided our family long before Travis arrived. She continued, "When Dad died, I was angry. I was angry that you still loved him more than anyone. I was angry that the house felt like his house. I was angry that I was still the little girl waiting for attention." I lowered the letter. For the first time, I understood. The house had never been only about money. It was also about pain, jealousy, loss, unspoken wounds. Vanessa had envied a dead man, not because Michael was cruel, but because he occupied a place in my heart she believed she could never reach. That realization hurt both of us. Several days later, she asked if she could visit. I agreed. When she arrived, she looked different, healthier, quieter. She stood at the front door holding a small box. "I don't want to come in unless you want me to." The words alone told me she had changed, because before she simply entered. I nodded. "Come in." She stepped slowly into the living room. Her eyes moved across the furniture, the photographs, Michael's chair, everything restored. She began crying immediately. "I never thought I'd see this again." Neither did I. She handed me the box. Inside were old family photographs, school pictures, birthday cards, letters. "I found these in my apartment." I looked at them, years of memories. She sat carefully on the sofa. Not Michael's chair, the sofa, as though she understood certain things still belonged to him. Finally, she said, "I don't expect forgiveness." I looked at her. "I know. I don't expect trust." "I know." She took a deep breath. "But I want to earn both." The room became quiet. Outside, rain began falling softly. Exactly like the day everything started. I walked to Michael's chair, placed my hand on the worn leather. Then I looked at my daughter. "There is something you need to understand." She nodded. "You will never have a key to this house again." Tears filled her eyes. "I understand." "If you visit, you will be invited." She nodded. "If you need help, you ask." More tears. "But you never make decisions for me again." She covered her mouth. "I promise." The promise felt different, because for the first time it came without pressure, without expectation, without manipulation. Only humility. Before she left, she stood beside Michael's chair. She touched the armrest gently. "I used to sit here when I was little." I smiled. "He used to let you pretend to drive the house." She laughed softly through tears. "He always said I was stubborn. He was right." She smiled. As she reached the door, she turned back. "Do you think Dad would forgive me?" I looked at the photograph sitting on the cabinet, Michael smiling beside the lake, the man who loved his daughter more than anything. "I think your father would want you to become someone you can forgive." She cried again. Then she left. I stood at the window watching her drive away. Not as the frightened little girl who had come home months earlier. Not as the woman who sold my furniture, but as someone finally beginning to face herself. And for the first time since all of this began, I realized something. The greatest punishment had never been losing the house. The greatest punishment was losing herself. And perhaps the beginning of healing was finally finding her way back. 6 months later, autumn returned to Cleveland. The maple tree outside my living room window had turned red again. The air felt cooler. The mornings arrived more slowly, and for the first time in a very long while, my home felt peaceful. Not because everything had returned to the way it was. Nothing ever truly returns. Michael was still gone. The years were still passing. The pain still visited me sometimes. But peace had slowly begun replacing fear. Every Saturday morning, I sat in Michael's chair with coffee and watched the sunlight move across the room. The furniture had returned. The photographs stood once again inside the oak cabinet. His watch rested beside my bed. The house no longer felt like something I needed to defend. It felt like home again. Vanessa continued attending therapy. At first, we spoke only once each week. Short phone calls, careful conversations. Neither of us trusted the ground beneath our relationship. But slowly, things changed. One afternoon, she invited me to her apartment. It was small. Only one bedroom. Simple furniture. Second-hand dishes. A folding table. Nothing expensive. Nothing impressive. But everything belonged to her. She made dinner. The chicken was dry. The vegetables were overcooked. And it was one of the best meals I had eaten in years. Because she had done it herself. No one rescued her. No one paid for it. No one solved the problems. She had started rebuilding her own life. After dinner, she handed me an envelope. Another payment. A small amount. Not much, but enough. I know it doesn't fix anything. I looked at her. It isn't supposed to. She lowered her eyes. I want to repay everything. I shook my head. You cannot repay trust with money. Tears appeared. I know. But you can rebuild it. She nodded. And that became our new beginning. One honest conversation at a time. Several months later, Benjamin invited both of us to lunch. He looked healthier than I remembered. Retirement seemed to agree with him. After dessert, he smiled. Michael would be proud. Vanessa immediately cried. I don't know about that. Benjamin looked directly at her. Your father believed people could change. She wiped her eyes. I hurt Mom. Yes. I hurt him. Benjamin shook his head. No. She looked confused. He knew you struggled. He worried, but he never stopped loving you. For several moments, nobody spoke. Then Benjamin handed me another envelope. What's this? Michael left it with me. I frowned. Another letter. He smiled. He told me to wait. Wait for what? Until your family found its way back. My hands trembled. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single page. Destiny. If you are reading this, then life probably became difficult after I left. Please remember something. People make mistakes when they are afraid. They make worse mistakes when they are hurting. Love them when you can. Protect yourself when you must. And never confuse forgiveness with weakness. Take care of our girl. I love you both. Michael. The restaurant became quiet. Vanessa covered her mouth. I could not stop crying. Because somehow Michael had understood all of this before any of us did. The fear, the mistakes, the forgiveness. Months later, I received unexpected news. Travis had left Ohio. Several lawsuits involving debts and financial disputes followed him. Benjamin handled the remaining legal issues, the forged signatures, the furniture, the financial records. Nothing resulted in criminal charges. But Travis disappeared from our lives completely. And strangely, I no longer cared. Because he had never truly been the center of the story. The real story had always been us. Mother, daughter, loss, grief, love. One Sunday afternoon, Vanessa helped me clean the attic. For years, I had avoided it. Boxes, Christmas decorations, old clothes, school projects. Near the back, we found her bicycle. The same bicycle from the photograph Michael kept. She laughed through tears. I remember this. He ran behind you for weeks. She smiled. I thought he was holding the seat. He stopped holding it long before you realized. She looked at me. You think I can do that now? I understood exactly what she meant. Can I stand on my own? Can I stop depending on other people? Can I become someone better? I smiled. Your father would say yes. That evening, she prepared to leave. As she reached the front door, she paused. Mom. Yes. She held out her hand. Inside was my spare house key, the one she had kept for years. I think this belongs here. I looked at it. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I closed her fingers around it. Keep it. She looked surprised. Really? Yes. Tears immediately filled her eyes. But there are rules now. She laughed softly. I figured. You knock. I knock. You ask. I ask. You never make decisions for me. I never will again. I nodded. Then keep it. Because trust is not rebuilt all at once. It returns in small pieces, a conversation, a visit, a key, a promise. As winter approached, I decorated the house for Christmas. For the first time since Michael died, I wanted the lights, the music, the tree. Vanessa came over to help. Halfway through decorating, she stopped in front of Michael's chair. The chair remained exactly where it had always been. She smiled. Dad would complain about these lights. He hated untangling them. We both laughed, and for one beautiful moment, grief no longer divided us. It connected us. That night, after she left, I sat alone beside the Christmas tree. The lights reflected softly across the room. Michael's watch rested in my hand. The house was quiet, peaceful, home. I thought about everything that had happened, the furniture, the lies, the signatures, the fear, the betrayal, and I realized something. My daughter sold my furniture while I slept, but what nearly disappeared was something far more valuable, our family, and somehow through pain, truth, consequences, and forgiveness, we had found our way back. Not perfectly, not completely, but honestly. And at 68 years old, I finally understood something my husband had known all along. Love does not mean allowing people to hurt you. Forgiveness does not require forgetting. And protecting yourself is not the opposite of loving someone. Sometimes it is the only way both people can finally heal. Grief changes families. Sometimes it pulls people together. Sometimes it pushes them apart. Destiny learned that love without boundaries can become dangerous. Vanessa learned that desperation can lead good people toward terrible decisions. And both women discovered that healing begins only when truth finally enters the room. This story reminds us that growing older does not mean becoming powerless. Experience, wisdom, and self-respect remain valuable at every age. No one has the right to make decisions for another person simply because they are grieving, aging, or lonely. At the same time, mistakes do not always define a person's entire life. People can change when they accept responsibility. Relationships can heal when honesty replaces fear. Trust may return slowly, but it can return. Michael's final lesson remained the most important. Protect yourself when necessary. Forgive when possible. And never confuse kindness with weakness. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone you loved? What would you have done in Destiny's place? If you enjoyed this journey, please like and subscribe for more emotional family stories. And wherever you're watching from, share your location and the current time in your comment. Your stories and experiences may help someone else who is walking through a difficult season.